Hello to all my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched and Share Shots. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me tonight, hailing from Atlanta, Georgia, he is the Ripper. He is death itself. He is Trey Shaw. Trey, thanks for coming on about chatting some wrestling, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Man, I appreciate it. I'm just kind of hanging out, enjoying my evening, knocking a couple things out, then probably settle in, have some dinner, and watch some wrestling.
Right. Same here. Same here.
I appreciate your time, man. This is always fun because I was just telling you, it's kind of everybody's unique story about wrestling. So, first question is always, what was your exposure like? What are some of your earliest memories? What kind of wrestling did you watch as a kid?
As a kid, of course, everybody watched WWE because that was basically the mainstay of WWE. But actually, as a kid, I was introduced to um, outside companies outside of WWE, which a lot of people aren't introduced to them first. But I was first introduced to, I believe it was WCW, and I was introduced to like Sting and Great Muta and stuff like that through my uncles who enjoyed wrestling. And then when I got older and I was introduced to WWE, the entertainment aspect is what really drew me in. Um, Unlike the athleticism that we saw in WCW, it was more entertainment aspect, entertainment drawn for WWE. So I think that's what really drew me in when I first started watching wrestling.
I'm a WCW NWA kid. I grew up, some of my earliest memories are in the late 80s, early 90s. So I remember the tail end of the NWA and like when WCW first kind of broke onto the scene. So we grew up like kind of watching the same stuff. Let's fast forward a little bit. So you've decided, okay, I want to be a pro wrestler. What was that like? What was that
Mhm.
moment for you that was like, this is what I want to do?
Right. So probably since I was like 4 years old, I've known that I've wanted to be a professional wrestler. So it kind of didn't really hit me until I actually got that opportunity. I was working at a movie theater, and I met one of the Renegade twins, Charlotte. We were talking about wrestling at the movie theater, and she gave me a card to the One Fall Power Factory, which is now the Nightmare Factory. And that's pretty much how I got introduced and brought into wrestling. Um, and it's kind of like it just fell in my lap. So it was like, what am I going to do with this opportunity? Am I going to let it pass me by, or am I going to take it?
What was that process like for you when you decided to jump in both feet first into the water, so to speak? What was that initial shock like when you got into the training, your schedule, the training routine? What was that like first?
I feel like it was almost like I was living outside of my body. You know what I mean?
It's kind of
Um,
surreal feeling at first, right?
yeah, yeah. Like I met with QT and we were talking and stuff like that, and he took a call from Cody. He took a call from Cody Rhodes that day, and I remember this specifically. This is like a core memory. He took the call, and Cody was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "Oh, I'm talking to a potential trainee." He was like, "Tell him to stay right there. I'll be there in a minute." And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to see Cody Rhodes today, right? Cody shows up. It's him, Sean Spears, and Brandy, and he's the first person I meet as soon as I walk out of the door out of the meeting. So like, I just knew from then on it was going to be a wild and amazing journey. Um, the training, the hardest thing I've ever done. I've done almost every sport, trained for everything. I have a boxing background, amateur wrestling background, stuff like that. But like this is the absolute hardest thing that I've ever done. But I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? So
It's one of those like always the reward is worth it. Nothing easy or nothing worth it is easy or whatever cliche
right.
you want to use to make it. Have you had one of those moments yet in your career where you just like have you had one of those you had to no sell a fanboy moment like you just mentioned it like your first day in the building you met Cody QT right off
Yeah.
the rip like has there been one of those moments where you had to no sell it for somebody?
I've definitely had to no sell it for a lot of people. Just recently, like even though I'm further into my career, Last year, like WrestleMania weekend, I met Minoru Suzuki and John Moxley and all those guys. I'm just like, wow, I used to watch you guys growing up, and now, we're in the same building, we're performing in the same ring, stuff like that. So it's very amazing. I don't think that I'll ever lose that shock factor when meeting my idols. You know what I mean?
I still have those moments too. Every time I go to a show or I meet somebody new, it takes that moment where I'm like, okay, be cool, Will, be cool.
Yeah. And
uh,
I'm always hesitant to take pictures and stuff like that. But like most of my wrestling friends are like, don't hesitate to take pictures because you never know. Um, when I met the Briscoes, I also met the Briscoes in Dallas, and they were such nice guys. They were amazing guys, very humble. And I wish that would have taken a picture with Jay, and I miss him so much. I miss that just the experience that I had meeting them. So
I had a chance to meet Jay a few times, but most recently at StarCast this past July in 2022. So it was great to be able to meet him and to get a picture and stuff because it was absolutely terrible. That rocked the wrestling world.
yeah.
Let's take another step forward in your career now, and you're kind of breaking into the scene. A lot of people they talk about the story when they get out of training, and it's like learning to fly, so to speak. You got to
Mm.
start getting booked. What was the first few years like for you? You had some experience with SVW, PCW. What were those first few years like trying to get booked as an indie wrestler?
The first few years were hard, especially um, because of how serious it is, how serious wrestling is in the South. Is You have to be good and you have to be very, very entertaining. And I feel as though when I got my first booking, I got it through my mentor, Shug D, and it was at Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. That was like my first real official booking. And me and him had a match, and he not kind of, but he actually carried me through that match because it's like I thought I was ready enough, but like there's a different type of preparation when it comes to that. You know what I mean? And what better way to get prepared than to be thrown to the wolves? You know what I mean?
For sure.
So definitely getting booked. Um, I had to earn my way. I had to scratch and claw. So I don't regret that at all. I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to be coachable. And now, further into my career, I know who I am. So that really helps a lot.
Being from Georgia, I'm also from Tennessee, kind of in that belt buckle of the Bible Belt. It's pro wrestling, church, and college football or high school
Right.
football. So
Right.
I grew up in a lot of the same vibes with that. Like it was the South is very proud in the things we take serious, and pro
Mhm.
wrestling is one of them. You've had a chance recently too to work up north some in Indianapolis. My mom's from South Bend, so shameless plug there for the family as well. But Naptown
Right.
Pro, Indianapolis-based promotion. Jordan Rose, Jay Rose, and the boys. What's it like up there right now with Naptown?
Man, Naptown is such a joy to work with. I feel like I have a biased opinion because I love Jay Rose. I love all the boys. I love Chase, Calvin, all those guys, Sean. I love those guys. But I feel like the locker room, just the environment in general, the product, the production, the talent that they have on there is just unmatched. You know what I mean? And I feel like they're going to dominate eventually on IWTV. Like it's unmatched vibes. It's definitely a place that I would consider everybody who wants to be somebody to work because they really do put a lot into their production, and I really appreciate that. Especially, what they're giving me with everything that's going on. I really appreciate all of this.
There's a ton of indie wrestling out there. I
Yeah.
watch a lot of it. IWTV, I say it's the Netflix for indie wrestling. You can just pick whatever you want. A death match, find death match. You want to watch good Southern wrestling, turn on some of these
Mhm.
guys from Georgia or Tennessee. Um, but one of the things I find interesting most about it is the fans from territory to territory. You
Mhm.
started in the deep south here in Georgia. You've worked all the way
Mhm.
as north as Indianapolis. Do you see a huge difference from the fans from territory to territory? Is it a stylistic thing? Do they want a different kind of promo? You kind of see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Is there a huge difference in what the fans want? The further north you get or the further south you get?
Yeah. So more down south wrestling fans, they like hard hitting action. They like real rough and tough wrestlers, which I am. I'm very adaptable to any style. Um, so they really enjoy that. They love the ruggedness of a wrestler more than up north. Up north, they're more polished and more technical. And some of them are hard hitting, but some of them are more fast paced and high flying and stuff like that. So someone who's primarily wrestled down south can get very confused wrestling up north if they can't adapt. And wrestling fans up north enjoy that type of wrestling more than wrestling fans in the south for sure.
I like that. It's always, like I said, it's one of my the things I love most because I even see it here. I could see a show in Nashville or a show in Memphis or a show in Chattanooga, and even in those three cities, it's like three very different crowds.
Mhm.
You mentioned it with Naptown Pro. I've seen it as well with like MEW or Limitless. If you go even further north, a lot of these places have started. They book a lot of the same guys. They get a lot of the same people on the card. They start building chemistry. When you look at the locker room in a promotion like Naptown, who's bringing in a lot of the same people to book their stories, do you think that raises the morale of the locker room? It kind of helps build the chemistry, like seeing the same people week over week, knowing how it's going to work and stuff.
I I definitely do. I think that um, some of the people that I've worked at Naptown, who I had never, had any interaction with, we have become closer, um, and we have, done things to benefit each other's career, in terms of whether it's advice on storylines or anything like that. Like we all have that camaraderie in that locker room, and I think that's something that is rarely found nowadays in locker rooms.
Something else I found on your social medias when I was doing my due diligence on my end. You speak a lot and you speak highly on your professionalism inside the ring and outside of the ring.
Mhm.
Coming from my previous life as a chef, I understand how hard it is to have a work life balance. And everybody knows in indie wrestling, like it's a full time job to get out there and make your name on the scene. Plus, you've got to work. Some people have to work full time jobs on the side of working, plus your
Mhm.
family. What's it like for you trying to find that work life balance between everything?
Sometimes it's a struggle. I try to find the balance and I try to find my motivation, because I love this business. Even though sometimes it may feel like it doesn't love me back, you know what I mean? But I love this business. So I feel like I will do whatever it takes to make it in this industry. Um, and I also work a full-time job, so I know how it is. I know how tiring it is to work a full-time job, then on the weekend go and travel up the road, not being able to spend as much time as you want with your family or your significant other. Sorry, but I know what that feels like. So I try to maintain that balance and try to maintain that peace of mind as much as I can. Sometimes it's a struggle, but you just got to work through. You got to push through.
You brought it up right there. Life on the road. You'll hear the stories, both good, bad, and indifferent, from some of the old guys about life on the road, and the silly stories about living off of cheeseburgers and drive-throughs and all of that. You got any cool road stories from 2022? We haven't really got too far into 2023 yet. You got a story that stands out in 2022 though?
Uh, my story. I have a story of I was traveling with a couple of my wrestling friends, Darian Bankston, Trip Jordy, Carly Bravo. We were going to Chicago, also Ashton Starr. We were going to Chicago to wrestle at Black Wrestlers Matter in Chicago. And like Carly has this thing where like if we go anywhere where there's a White Castle, we have to stop at the White Castle. So like I think that every time we go on a trip with Carly, it's a regular thing. We're like, hey Carly, it's a White Castle coming up. You know what I mean? So like it's that's one of our most entertaining things. Like we always, make up fantasy matches in the car and stuff like that. Joke around and talk about the business and how we want to give back to the business and stuff like that. So like most of my road stories are about that. You know what I mean? Yeah, we try to have fun while we're still young. You know what I mean?
I'm a crystals guy. I don't mind White Castles. There's just something about crystals. If I'm gonna have a slider burger, I'm gonna go there versus the other way. Um,
Yeah, Christmas is good going in, but coming out is a whole different story.
I mean, it's the risk and the reward, right? Like I don't mind. It is what it is. You know what you're getting when you stop at a Crystals. It's kind of like a Waffle
Right,
House, man. You don't go to Waffle
right,
House expecting the perfect
right.
dining experience.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
you make my job easy because another thing on my list was Black Wrestlers Matter. It's always nice when you see a lot of people come together for the culture. Talk about that event for me for a minute. Like, what was it like to be able to do something that was so great to help elevate people of color in the business?
Man, I just was in awe of how many black wrestlers there were on one card and how many talented black wrestlers there were on one card. The locker room camaraderie was amazing. Um, and I feel like the show definitely showed why people of color are important enough to be on TV screens or any promotion and that they can put on a show. Um, so I feel like Black Wrestlers Matter. They are very good at what they produce. You know what I mean? They are good at showing and showcasing these black talents, and I feel like they should keep going. We can't stop there. They should definitely keep going.
All right, Trey. This is the part. I always end with five random questions that usually don't have anything to do with wrestling. I got your five queued up. You ready?
Let's go. Let's do it.
What's your favorite sandwich? If you're gonna order a sandwich, it could be from anywhere. Like, do you have a go-to?
Um, anything roast beef.
Like a
I'm a big roast beef guy.
nice
Roast beef,
Swiss.
no tomato, I'll eat it.
Yeah. All right. This I think I probably know the answer to it. There was a whole conversation between me and a few friends. Somebody didn't know what grits were. Have you ever had grits?
I love grits.
Okay, I was unsure. I was like, is this as common as I think it is? Do people just
Uh,
don't know what grits are? But when I saw you were from Atlanta, I was like, he's
oh yeah.
probably gonna know what grits
Oh
are.
yeah.
He's from the South.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a current celebrity crush?
Scissor
Always a solid pick.
or Ice Spice.
Yeah. Do you have one
Yeah.
food you refuse to eat?
Tomatoes.
That's not bad. I like tomatoes. Never,
Oh, yeah.
not bad. Do you have a guilty pleasure movie?
Deadpool too.
That was a great one. I love anything
Yeah.
Deadpool
I
related. I
love
thought that was
Deadpool.
great. Ready for the third one? I'm hyped for that.
Yes.
All right, Trey, this is the easy part of the episode. I don't have to say anything. Just plug your stuff. Tell everybody what you have coming up. Any events or anything. Just take a couple seconds. Put yourself over.
Gotcha. Hi, my name is the Ripper Trey Shaw. You can follow me on Instagram on all platforms at Shaw the Ripper. I have a couple of shows coming up. I have a local show in Covington, Georgia, PCW, coming up on Friday. I also have I will be in the building for Naptown Pro Wrestling on February 26th in Indianapolis, Indiana. Make sure you guys come out and see both of those shows if you can. Um, and yeah, that's all I got right there.
Excellent, Trey, man. I appreciate you stopping by and chatting about some wrestling with me.
No problem.
For the Ripper Trey Shaw, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.